Welcome back to the Foundation in C# course. We're currently in Module 9, and this lesson we're going to be configuring our database choice. So let's go to the homework. Design a way that the choice of which database type to use can be set in the appsettings.json file of each user interface. Okay? You have to figure out how do we indicate which type of database to use, and then how we tell that to dependency injection. Okay, so figure that out, give it a shot, and then once you're done and it's operational, come on back to this video. So pause right now. All right, I'm assuming that you put in some good effort on that and that you got it working or got really, really close. Let's see how I would do it. The first thing you need to do is what we're using dependency injection is this iDatabase data. So we're going to create a new class inside of data. We're going to call it SQLite data. And we're going to make it public. And we're going to say that this is an iDatabase data class and control dot to implement the interface. Now, right now we have all of our methods, all 5 of them, are throwing new not implemented exceptions, meaning we don't want to just allow these methods to run. We want to make sure they throw an exception until we actually put real code in here. That's fine. But that gives us the stub we need. We will come back in our different lessons and add code to this. But for right now, what we're going to do is we're going to work on getting this in a dependency injection and then knowing which one to use. So let's start with our web application. I'm going to come over here to our startup, and right here is where we add our iDatabase data. And right now it's just SQL data. We could change it to SQLite data, but that's hard coding it. We don't want to hard code it. We want to have some way of saying, okay, we need the configuration to tell us which one to do. So for that, we should be able to use this configuration property. So let's do this. If configuration dot get value of type, let's do type string. I'm kind of debating on this. I think I want string, and the reason why is because with a type string, I can choose SQL or SQLite, but I can also choose MongoDB or something else down the road, and I don't have to rewrite this if statement. I just have to add another case or another else. So we don't have a value or a place for this yet. Let's call this database choice. And we'll say, you know what, let's grab this out. I'm going to cut this and say string, string db choice equals to lower. That way I can say if db choice equals SQL, then what we'll do is we'll add this line right here. So I cut it out of here and put it here. Else if, and we'll say db choice equals, double equals, SQLite, then we're going to say instead of SQL data access, we will say SQLite data access, or SQLite data. And then we're going to have an else statement in here. And this else is the fallback / default value. And that'll be SQL. So therefore, if you choose something other than SQL, like if you type in test, then it's going to default to SQL. You could throw an exception here, but I think that falling back to one type is just fine. So SQL or SQLite. So there is our if statement. Now we do have to add in the app settings a database choice. So comma, database choice, and that's going to be SQLite. Let's set the SQLite for now. All right, so let's grab this logic right here, and we're going to go over to our WPF application, and we're going to look at the app.xaml.cs. And in here, we're going to add our service, but we're going to do that right down here after the config gets built. So let's go right after this, and we'll paste this in, but we're going to say config instead of configuration. Everything else is the same. We're now doing the add transient for iDatabase data, so we can remove it from up here. Don't forget that step. So it's the same logic. It's just we had to use config, which is our I configuration, versus configuration. Now we can go over to our app settings.json, and we can add that same setting. So let's just copy it so we don't mess this up. Copy, paste, including that comma. So database choice is SQLite. So database choice is going to be SQLite. And haha, if you hadn't noticed already, I'm doing it too lower. Well, then I can't do this. I have to do this, and I have to do this, which means I have to change my other code over here to also be the lowercase version, like so. There we go. So now we have our SQL and SQLite. We're all set. We can still store it as the correct casing, but when it goes into the check, it's going to do a too lower on it first. That way, just in case you get the casing wrong, it's okay. It will take care of it for you. So let's make sure this works. Now they're both set right now to SQLite, which only has those exceptions being thrown whenever we try and do anything. So let's run our application. You may say, but Tim, it's going to throw an exception. Absolutely it is. That's a good thing. That means it's actually going to the right place. If it doesn't throw an exception, that's the problem. So Corey, search, not implemented. Cool. So our WPF application is working. Let's set to the web. So set as startup project and run the web. And this should actually fail, I believe, as soon as you go to the page. So let's find out once the page launches. We go to room search. Oh, no, we have to do a search. Do a search, and it popped up behind, but we have an exception. So perfect. We are operating as expected. Now let's change the app setting.json to SQL and run our web app. So the web app is running. There we go. Room search. Search for the room. And there's our available room. Just a king size bed is all we have available to us. So that means we are operational as expected. Now I won't do the WP app. I will, because I'm going to put SQLite back for our app setting.json in web, and let's change it for desktop. I debate if I want to do it or not, just because it feels like it's a waste of time. But at the same time, I do want to show for completeness that this is working both ways. Otherwise, there's an assumption here, and I don't want to have an assumption. So search, it does work. Therefore, we are good to go. We can call this a success and move on to the next lesson. So in our next lesson, we will talk about adding the ability to get available rooms for our guests.